What's up, everyone? It's Benedict here, aka BHL Hudson. Welcome back to the BHL2 channel. And today we have a little bit of a different topic. We're going to be talking about Chris Stuckmann, movie review YouTuber extraordinaire, because he's found himself in a little bit of hot water lately. He's been in hot water before in the past. I mean, compared to other YouTubers' hot water, it's, lukewarm water. But as someone who has reviewed movies on YouTube, as someone who wants to become a filmmaker, the YouTuber to filmmaker path, I find his story quite interesting. I find where he's at now quite interesting. I feel like I have some thoughts that could be interesting to talk about. So yeah, let's go through what's going on with Chris Stuckmann, what he's been up to, what's happening. First of all, real quick, just Chris Stuckmann background, my relation to Chris Stuckmann and the whole not reviewing bad movies controversy from a few years back. Basically, you know Chris Stuckmann. He's been a movie review YouTuber for a very long time, one of the biggest ones on the platform. And I'll be honest, I was never big on Chris Stuckmann. I'd watch his videos occasionally. I liked his end of year top 10 best and worst videos, but I found his content to be a bit dull. I just thought both his opinions and the way he presented them were just not very interesting. They were just very, very basic. I was more of a Jeremy Jahns viewer personally, which, in hindsight, Jeremy Jahns might be kind of a fucking idiot or something. But hey, when I was 14, Jeremy Jahns, that was peak movie reviewing content on YouTube. But yeah, I've been pretty indifferent to Chris Stuckmann over the years. When he did the whole not reviewing bad movies thing, basically when Madame Web came out, he put out this video where he gave a long-winded reason why he's not criticizing movies anymore, and it was mostly based on, having worked in film, seeing the process, not wanting to criticize other artists and studios getting involved and all this kind of stuff. And at the time I hated that. I thought it was super stupid and spineless and all this kind of stuff. The initial part also, I thought, I rewatched the video just now. And it is a little bit of a cop-out. I feel like there are easy holes to pick in what he's saying where, he's talking about how the studios, they force these things on creatives and you don't want to criticize the creatives, but shouldn't you, it's not just the creatives that made the movie, it's also the studio. The movie is a product of all of that stuff. Surely the movie still should have some criticism with the studio. You can say in the review that the studio is probably the reason. You can still say it's really bad and it's probably not the default of the director, it's probably the fault of the studio. These are things you could say in a review. Also, what if the studio exec is a really, let's just say, is a really creative person and they really thought it was a good idea and, it ends up being Madame Web and it fucking sucks. Does that, if they're doing it out of a creative, pureness in their heart, does that absolve the decision? Or what if the director or, the creatives at the top of the film are actually the ones who came up with a bad idea? I'm not saying for Madame Web specifically necessarily, but for any film, does that, you know what I mean? There are ways that I feel you could poke holes in this. Sometimes the creatives could be at fault. I feel you can't automatically be and being a filmmaker myself, I know what the studio can force upon you. I don't know, maybe someone's just bad at writing or directing. It happens. And it should still, I think it could still be criticized also without you being a dick. That was another thing where, yeah, you can do this without personally attacking people. Almost all film criticism is not personal attacking. From what I know about Chris Stuckmann, his film criticisms weren't really that mean. Of course he's over the top and funny sometimes, as most critics are, but yeah, you're not personally hating on people. And at the very least, if you felt like you were, you didn't have to going forward. There was a lot of stuff that I was okay, this seems like a cop-out. Honestly, I don't doubt that part of his reasons for this was he's worked in film, he's seen the system, and he has an appreciation for how hard it is to make a movie. But I also think pretty obviously part of it is that you're working in film now. You don't want to fuck with the people who you are working with, who could give you more opportunities. You don't want to be trying to make a movie and then, say about the producer's last movie, this was a huge pile of shit, whatever. I'm pretty sure I've seen an interview he did for Shelby Oaks where he said something to this effect as well. And in hindsight with this whole not reviewing bad movies things, honestly, I kind of get it. I'm not really that mad about it. I feel if he just put more emphasis in the video on, if he was just I don't know, a little bit more honest about, in my opinion at least, what it seems like a big reason is, yeah, I am trying to work in this industry. It would not be good for my career to critique these movies. I feel that's pretty understandable. As someone also who wants to work in film, if I do end up working my way up some kind of film industry ladder, yeah, I probably can't be on my podcast every week talking about like, Tom Cruise ass eating or something, like, which if you've not listened to the podcast, that's a crazy sentence to just introduce you to it. But, there are certain ways, yeah, you won't go as hard and all this kind of stuff. Like, I understand it. I think, yeah, there was just a bit of a disconnect between how he presented that. But honestly, in hindsight, I'm not even that mad about it. However, there are still problems with it that affect his content now, which we will get to. But then we have this Chris Stuckmann redemption arc, where I didn't really think about Chris Stuckmann since that, incident with not reviewing bad movies. And then his movie came out recently, Shelby Oaks, and I saw him doing a lot of promo for it, appearing on a lot of different channels and doing interviews and stuff. And I have to say, I was charmed. I was charmed by the Stuckmann. I was Stuckmannized by it, if you will. For one, yeah, again, the film review YouTuber to filmmaker arc. There's something to that. I feel like a lot of people who review movies on YouTube want to be filmmakers one day, and so there's definitely something, interesting about that, especially the how high level it was. Releasing in cinemas, Mike Flanagan on board, all this kind of stuff, real actors in it. Like, I think there is something to that, and I think he came across very well. I think he made some good points in his interviews. I saw one interview where he was talking about how in the future, there's not going to be filmmakers who don't have some past of internet criticism, film criticism. People right now who are going to be directors, in the next 10 years, they're making movie reviews on YouTube. They're talking on Letterboxd, all this kind of stuff. Like, you're going to have that, digital trail, so to speak. And that's just kind of inevitable. And I thought that was an interesting point, again, as someone who wants to do this. And I have to say, I got an appreciation for his love of film that I did not have before, where I feel like, again, like Jeremy Jahns, I think, likes going to the movies. I don't think he particularly cares about like film as an art form, or he's, diving into the history of film and the technique of film and all this kind of stuff. Like Chris Stuckmann, from some of his interviews and, some of the films he talked about, I was like, okay, I think you actually do give a shit about film and like you're into the artistry of it. And that won me over a little bit more. Like he was talking about Harakiri, and I was like, okay, like I'll bet a bit of money that Jeremy Jahns does not know what Harakiri is, which is fine for whatever he wants to do. But like I was like, okay, I think you are more into this than maybe I thought before I gave you credit for. However, we come to now, what even is the content anymore? So regardless of Shelby Oaks, I've not seen Shelby Oaks. I've heard generally bad things, but it is what it is. I was thinking of making a video about it because I think my expectations are it's like when a film reviewer makes a movie, it's like, or a film fan makes a movie, oftentimes it can just devolve into like, what if all of my favorite movies were in a movie? And I don't know if it's that, but if I watch it, maybe I'll talk about it. But I want to talk more about the actual content on the Chris Stuckmann YouTube channel now, which is where some of this controversy has recently arisen. Because when I heard about this gambling ad thing, which we'll talk about, I went back and I watched his last, 10, 15 videos or something, just to see, what's going on. And I don't know, man. This is not this is not good content, and I feel like there are very specific reasons and semi-avoidable or semi-fixable reasons why it's not, which we'll talk about. But I have some ideas for maybe Chris Stuckmann. You can revolutionize your game here. But the first thing I noticed was, NPC is an overused term, but NPC reviews without criticism are kind of nothing. Because what I saw Chris Stuckmann's reviews before as kind of NPC-ish reviews, where they were they're not very in-depth, I guess. It's a little bit insulting to say NPC, but this is good. The performances were good. I liked this bit. I liked this song. It's not mind-blowing or whatever. What makes those reviews or still, makes those somewhat interesting is that it's a rounded opinion of the film. You also have criticisms. You have what you liked and what you didn't like. You're not going super in-depth or saying anything too crazy about what you liked and didn't like. There's no crazy analysis, but the fact that you have both of those gives you, there's something there. That's content. That's a review. That's something to grasp onto. If you're doing the NPC review style of I liked the acting, I liked the music, and you don't do criticism, it's nothing. You're just saying that you liked things in a not very interesting way. So you're not analyzing very, doing any kind of in-depth analysis, and you're not criticizing. What is there to it? There's no flavor, there's no criticism, book report type review. You're kind of vaguely describing the plot and saying, I don't know, there's just, there is nothing to it. It's mostly just, this is good, this is good, this is good. And like, occasionally synonyms for it, like, and this was fantastic, and this was amazing. It's just kind of nothing content. And also, this is more, this is definitely speculative. So, take this with a grain of salt. But this ties into my thing before where, like, I'm like, okay, you actually have a love for film. You dive deep into film history, and I can respect that. But that makes me suspicious of some of these reviews, I'll be honest, where some of these movies, Highest to Lowest, for example, I watched that review. Glowing review, great movie, love all the stylistic aspects of it. As someone who's really into film, you loved, or at the very least you really liked Highest to Lowest. You didn't have anything bad to say about it, in the sense that you made a review for your I don't review bad movies type of YouTube channel. I just find that a little bit hard to believe. Like, I don't know, maybe he is just someone who sort of has a puppy dog enjoyment of it. Same with like Predator Badlands, which was like a good movie, and I think there's definitely, if you like that movie, that's totally fine. But the fact that like you don't have anything negative to say about it, and I guess that's your style now, but it just comes across as weird, like that if you love movies and you've watched all these great films, I feel like you would pick up on things, especially in something like Highest to Lowest, where it's like, yeah, that was bad, that was badly paced, that was badly written, that was like, I mean, he praised the music. The music was fucking terrible in that movie, and like, I don't know. And then I feel like you have to go super over the top for something you really do like. Like, I watched his review of No Other Choice, and he has to like break out every superlative. This was the best. This was the funniest, craziest, so amazing. I've never seen a movie. I never felt like this before. And again, there's no real substantive analysis. Like, I feel like I still don't really know much about that movie, except he really, really liked it. But it's just like, now that he's finally seen like a real great movie, he really has to go over the top. And it's just, you've moved the goalpost. So like a, pretty good movie, you say, it's great, it's really good, everything's good, I liked everything. And then when you actually see a great movie, you have to like go stupidly over the top with it. I don't know, I just find that to be odd and kind of off-putting about the content. But then the big controversy, what everyone's talking about, is these ads in these short videos. Basically, he makes like 5-minute long reviews, which is already like pretty short for a review. Like, you're really not going to get that much substance into that. And then there's like a minute and a half, 2 minutes of ads. Like, it's like basically a third of the review, or a quarter is like a fucking ad. And that's pretty lame. Yeah, I mean, I don't have a problem with, everyone does sponsored stuff on YouTube, but when you make a really short video and that much of it is an ad, it becomes, it's not really content anymore. It's like the video's a vehicle for an ad. And then the big controversy recently was in his Wicked 2 review, where again, like a third of it is a fucking ad. The ad is for a gambling casino app, which is just like, an objectively shitty thing to advertise. I mean, and funny. I mean, also, low-key, I would recommend watching the ad read. I'll give you a free plug, Chris Stuckmann, because it's very funny watching Chris Stuckmann read a gambling ad. Like, I'm pretty sure Chris Stuckmann has never used the words high roller in his life before. The way he just says all this shit, like, completely dead inside is pretty funny. But, yeah, to not just advertise, Factor or, whatever fucking thing that sponsored you, but to advertise, like, something that's actively, like, kind of a bad thing, like gambling, like, it's... if you want to gamble, that's fine, but it's kind of like advertising cigarettes or alcohol or, things that, especially, I don't know, I don't know if Chris Stuckmann has like a young audience, but I mean, you shouldn't, I don't think you should be advertising gambling, especially on like a movie review. Like, at least when I watch a lot of sports, and like, I think it's absurd how much sports betting is integrated like into the actual sports, but at least, there's a tie in there. People bet on sports. You're reviewing fucking Wicked. Also, yeah, Wicked's a kid's movie, and you're reviewing this Wicked-related casino app. Like, it's like, yeah, and by the way, you can play the Wicked version of this slot machine on this app. Like, Wicked's... everyone in my cinema was a fucking kid. Like, Wicked is for children, generally, and you're advertising... Like, yeah, no, I can see why that comes across as, like, weird and scummy and kind of shitty. Yeah, and so basically, I mean, to sum it up, these are 5-minute videos where there's basically not a lot of content. You don't really talk that much about the movie. Like, you don't say anything that I wouldn't really already know about the movie. Your opinion, I already know about the movie because I know you're going to like it. There's occasionally something, like, specific, but it's generally, very general statements. And then about a third of the video or something like that is an ad. and the ad is possibly for a bad thing. Like, yeah, I can see why people are not fucking with the Chris Stuckmann content lately. So with that in mind, I want to talk about, instead of just doing like a pile-on hate video, I want to talk about what I would do next if I was Chris Stuckmann, or if I was advising him, if somehow you were watching this, Mr. Stuckmann. Here are some ideas for what possibly you could do. Because I don't think Chris Stuckmann's a bad guy. I think he seems like a very normal guy. Again, from his Shelby Oaks stuff, seems almost like a cool guy, honestly. Like, I think he seems like a decent guy. So I'm not trying to pile on here, but what I would suggest, if you're not going to do criticism for films, like if you're not reviewing bad movies, and if you're reviewing normal movies and just going to say good things about them, I don't think that's going to cut it, really. Like, it's going to get pretty boring and bland very quickly. I mean, I feel like it has for me. Like, I didn't really watch initially, but there's not much to the content. Like, I'm not clicking on the video wondering what you're going to say because I already know what you're going to say. So I feel like that kind of has to go in some way or another. If you're not going to do criticism, I think doing analysis or more in-depth reviews could be the way to go, even for newer movies, for older movies. I did watch his review for The Birds, and I thought that was one of the better reviews that he did, where it doesn't have to be, a fucking 1 hour video essay where you analyze every frame, but just something substantive. That video had like, not critiques, but it had like points being made with specific examples that was, kind of interesting. Like, I think that kind of stuff, I know it's not as clickable as like, look, new movie coming out, but if you're not criticizing the new movie, or you're not like saying anything interesting about it, you kind of don't really get to talk about the new movie and have the boost of it being your title and thumbnail, because the stuff is just nothing. So I would say lean more into analysis, or, just saying something interesting about a film instead of this bland, like, it was good, I like this type of content. Also, I think the videos have to be a bit longer. If you're going to put a 90-second ad in it, I don't think the videos can be 5 minutes. Like, that's just add to content time is kind of crazy. Because, most people skip over ads, but when you put an ad in a video, I guess the expectation is that people will watch it. So you want people to watch 90 seconds of commercials for 5 minutes of content? Like, I don't know, that's kind of bullshit. And I feel like that should be obvious. So either ads are shorter. I don't know what you can do with ad reads, if you can make them shorter or not, but barring that, then I think there should be more content. You got to have more, it's pretty simple, more bang for your buck. If you put that long of an ad, you need to have enough content to make it up to the viewer for watching that bullshit they don't want to watch. And then I would just say, this is sort of my main point here, because I assume he's going to focus on his film career. Because I think Shelby Oaks did reasonably well. I have no idea, but like, I didn't hear it was a huge bomb, and I feel like I would have if it was. So I feel like he's going to have more opportunities in film, which I would assume is his focus. I assume that's his passion now. I would say focus on that, and it's totally fine to have YouTube in the background as like something to have a bit of money coming in. I'm sure being an indie filmmaker is not a super lucrative film career, or career in general. So there's no problem at all with still doing YouTube stuff in the background, but you can't just have YouTube being like a free money printing machine in the background for no work put into it, for a couple of reasons. Both practically, if you just make like kind of bullshit nothing content, people are not going to stick around and watch if your videos are 5-minute, ad vehicles. And also, like, out of respect for the people who gave you, the audience that gave you these opportunities, this platform, this career, all this money over these years, I think you owe people enough to not just treat them like, slop consumers of like, look, here's my non-opinions on a movie plus an ad. Look, I as someone who makes YouTube videos, I can and as someone who has recently entered the adult world, and I realize how much stuff costs and how hard it is to make a living and all this kind of stuff, I totally appreciate wanting to maximize the amount of money you can make from YouTube videos. And I spend, a lot of time thinking about like, okay, titles and thumbnails and, even, I mean, you're watching this on BHL2, my second channel, with, lower edited content. Clearly there is some benefit of, having the ability to put out longer content without having to work as much time on it in the background. But that being said, you still have to have something substantive for people to want to watch. I'm still, making the videos on the main channel. I still try to make these videos interesting, and, it's not just like garbage to be consumed. I'm still putting effort into it. You can't just make nothing and then put an ad in it, and like that's your content. Like I just feel like that's yeah, there's an idea of like, okay, now I'm on this film career, this YouTube channel can just like keep making that money in the background. I can just like put out this bullshit. It doesn't work like that. That's all I'm saying. So I think it's totally fine to focus on a film career, but I feel like your YouTube content, while it can totally be an afterthought, it should not be like a complete background noise thing. Like if you're going to do it and you're going to want people to be watching it, you should put at least a little bit more effort into it, I would say. And not treat your audience sort of with this level of disrespect, which I feel like that content kind of has had lately. So yeah, those are my thoughts on the Chris Stuckmann situation, the ads, and the not reviewing bad movies and stuff. At the end of the day, again, I think Chris Stuckmann seems like an okay guy, and he makes okay content, or he generally does. I think the stuff he's made lately is not very interesting, and with the gambling guide, a little bit shitty. I don't think he's like a bad person, but yeah, this is what I would suggest for maybe taking things in a new direction. So yeah, those are my thoughts on the Chris Stuckmann thing. Let me know what you think down below. Hit subscribe, like the video. I'll see you next time.